Hey everybody, this is Chris with Overclockersclub. I've got something cool here from Reolink, so let's get this one out of the box. So it's been a little while since I've reviewed one of these larger cameras from Reolink. In fact, I'm kind of in the middle of looking at the Loomis right now, so you want to keep your eyes open for that video review. But anyway, I actually reviewed the prototype to this camera. It was the 411, the RLC-511W, if I remember correctly. That's the body that it was in, but it was actually a 5 megapixel sort of an experimental version, so it didn't quite look like this. But here is the full-blown actual version, which is the RLC-511W. It is a Wi-Fi camera. It is dual band, so it works on 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. It does have an Ethernet port too, so you can hardwire it if you want, and it is a 5 megapixel camera. And it has zoom. I believe it's 4x optical zoom. That's right. It is waterproof. Of course, it's going outside. It has an external SD card slot, and it's IP66 waterproof again because it's going to be outside. So let's see what it looks like when it is out of the box. So again, this is a dual band Wi-Fi, but you can connect it to an Ethernet line if you have one. Of course, you'll usually get the best results if you can connect it to an Ethernet cable. And there is the small Ethernet cable that comes with it. For setup, you would probably need a much longer one if you install it with an Ethernet cable. Anyway, here's the hardware kit. It's got a little Allen wrench, some screws and some anchors, a couple of antennas here, and then there is a power cable here, or I should say an extension for a power cable. And get the unit out of the box here. And it does come with a power adapter. This adapter should be 12 volts. Yeah, 12 volt 1 amp, which is pretty standard on these cameras. And then the camera itself, of course, this feels pretty heavy. It's got a cast aluminum base and a cast aluminum housing, which looks like it's in two pieces. Has a black shroud. You can see the array of infrared LEDs along the front there. And then on the back, there are your antenna sockets, or your connections for your antenna. And then, might have to loosen this up a little. Anyway, there's a slot for your SD card. So you pull the screws out, and there's probably a little seal behind this to keep the weather and moisture out, and that's where your SD card goes. So I had to grab my own little Allen wrench for this small set screw here so I could swing the base out of the way and take the little cover off so that you could see the SD card slot. But it doesn't come with this Allen wrench. The Allen wrench that it comes with here, this is much larger. It's actually for these fasteners here that help secure the base. So anyway, you'll need to get your own little Allen wrench to loosen that up. But anyway, two little Phillips head screws, and this little cover comes off. Now, you don't have to use an SD card if you don't want to, but the SD card will store your onboard video for motion events that the camera captures. Now, one thing I like about this, and I'm sure it's just like the other cameras I have from Reolink, the 411 series, you can dump all of your video through an FTP protocol to like a NAS server. If you have one of those, you can get that set up. And I've done that with my 411 cameras, and it works pretty well. As far as the hardwired connections that go to this camera, there's your Ethernet port right there, and there is your power connector to get power to the camera, and then there's a little reset button here that you can push to reset the camera. Now, usually on your Ethernet connections, at least on some of the other cameras I've gotten, there's a plastic grommet to make this a weather-tight connection when you feed your Ethernet cable in. But I don't know if they didn't include it or they just don't supply those anymore, but anyway, that's what you would want to do to make this weather tight if you do use an Ethernet connection. You want to make sure you keep any moisture out, or eventually your connection will not be very good with corrosion in there from moisture. So now what I'll do is I'll power the camera up. Usually what you do with these, if you've never used these cameras, your phone, you need to download the Reolink app to your phone, and then you scan this little QR code in that has the information for the camera, and then you need to connect to your Wi-Fi network, and the app walks you through all the steps. There are usually voice prompts that sort of guide you through it, so it's pretty easy to do. So first thing I'm going to do is put the power to the camera, and since I'm going to be installing this camera to the app on the phone that I'm using to record this, I won't be able to show that directly. Alright, so I've got the power to it. And this one does not have a speaker, so I probably won't hear a voice prompt on it, but that's okay. So let me get that QR code scanned in and then pull up access to the camera. So there I have it already powered up. It was very painless. I used a different Ethernet cable that I already had plugged into my system. And the way it asked me for the Wi-Fi password right away, it connected to my Wi-Fi, so I'm not sure I even really needed the Ethernet cable there, but it didn't hurt to plug it in. And then when I checked on my system here, my Reolink app, it showed that the camera was actually connected to the Ethernet, and it also had the Wi-Fi system in there already set up also. So again, very quick, very painless. Download the Reolink app and it walks you through. You'll have this thing, once you power it up, you'll have images on your phone in less than 5 minutes. This is a very clean looking camera. From everything I can see, the fit and finish is pretty standard, high quality from what I've seen with Reolink, and I've reviewed many cameras from Reolink over the years. So I'll go ahead and get this thing installed outside and get some sample images and play with some of the zoom and focus functionality and the recording and see how all that works. Now I'm getting ready to mount the 511 outside, but that up there is the original 511 prototype. You can see the body is the old 411 bullet style camera, but it has been up there working away for the last couple of years. But that's the original prototype up there. And it did not have Wi-Fi. It is strictly an Ethernet camera. So I'm pretty sure it is really just a 411 with a 5 megapixel sensor in it. Alright, so I got the camera installed outside, and I'll get some images and video from it. Anyway, in all the excitement, I blew right past the documentation here. This is your quick start guide. And really everything I told you about setting it up and getting the app on your phone is really in here. Oh, here's a Reolink video surveillance sticker and a template to transfer the holes for the mounting of the base of the camera. It even tells you what fasteners are used there. That's nice. But the quick start guide here tells you everything you need to know, and like I said, it pretty much has everything in it that I went through in setting it up. Getting your Wi-Fi settings, getting everything connected. It's all right here, and it's in a couple different languages. App here real quick. Now this is on my iPhone. The interface looks similar on an Android for the most part. But anyway, this is the live view right now of what's going on with that camera. And along the bottom here you can turn the sound off or on, snap a picture, record video, change your resolution and go to full screen mode. Also your pan, tilt, zoom controls are down here. So you slide that bar over and you will adjust the zoom. And again, it takes it a moment to catch up there on the focus. Zoom back out. And it also has the automatic focusing notification there, so when it's changing the focus, it lets you know. And let's see, the next thing, get out of the pan, tilt, zoom, okay. You can do clips to where you can actually focus on a specific area of the image if you want to record that area rather than the entire thing. You can move this around to different like zones. There's playback, which now you can look at all the motion events right there that are stored on the SD card. play each one of those back. And going to the gear up here, now this is where you get in and change your settings. So the top one there is for your Wi-Fi networks. You can change to different network if you're not on an Ethernet connection. The display here allows you to make adjustments to the display. The main thing here is you can move the camera name and the date. You can move those around so that they are easier to view. Coming back here, push notifications. This one here, when you enable it, then your phone will get the notifications of a motion event. You'll see a little notification pop up. So you can turn that off or on. You can set up email alerts if you want. Advanced here, this is another thing. It defaults to record audio off. Now I already have it turned on, but what that means is your video clips will either have audio or not, so you need to make sure that's enabled if you want to make sure that you get the audio capture too. FTP upload, this is where you set up, if you have an FTP capable server, you can dump all your video on there. And coming back, something else to show. Motion detection. Now this is where you adjust the sensitivity. I've got it set pretty high there, but you can adjust that up or down. And then there are motion zones. So if there's certain areas you want to mask out, like let's just say there's a tree shadow that's always triggering it, and you can black that area out so that it will not trigger motion events. And you can do that anywhere on the screen. You can do the whole screen if you want. But that covers pretty much most of the settings. So there's the 511 mounted temporarily on the side of the shed. I'm also testing the Loomis, but this is where I usually mount cameras for testing out here. There's one at the back of the shed, and there's another one I'm testing at the top. That way I can get a nice view of the pasture. Alright, so now I just want to give you a quick example of the zoom function. It's starting to rain again, so hopefully I can get this done before I get soaked. So right now we're zoomed all the way out, and you can zoom in incrementally anywhere you want between all the way in and all the way out. So we'll go about halfway zoomed in. Takes it a moment to focus. And then we'll go the rest of the way. So that's zoomed all the way in. And now we'll go ahead and zoom all the way back out. And again, it only takes it a moment to focus. So there's what it looks like zoomed all the way back out. So that gives you a pretty good idea of the zoom capabilities. One thing I always like to mention with regard to Wi-Fi cameras, and this applies to really all Wi-Fi cameras, they're really dependent on the strength and robustness of your home network. There are apps you can put on your phones, smartphones, Android or Apple, called, one that I use is Wi-Fi Sweet Spots. Then you can walk around and test the strength of your Wi-Fi signal and see how good it is inside and outside of your home. But a lot of problems that people have with Wi-Fi cameras are not really the camera, it's the strength of your own home Wi-Fi network, which may or may not need to be upgraded. So I have to say the RLC-511W is a great all-around camera. I really like it. 5 megapixel imaging, dual band Wi-Fi, plus the ability to use an Ethernet connection if you have one. Just a great camera. 4-time optical zoom. These cameras, when they first came out a couple years ago, a camera of this caliber with these features, these things were $150. Then they kind of came down to $129, $119, $100. This thing right now you can get for $89. I mean, why not? Great camera. If you're really looking for something, this is the one to check out. I'm going to have to give this the Overclockers Club Editor's Choice Award. So this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Check this thing out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.